Yes, beautiful. Rick Fortner, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to All Souls, those of us who are here in person, those who are watching online from around the country, across the world. It's great to be together this Labor Day weekend. It's a beautiful day here in Tulsa, and I hope wherever you are watching us, but it's great to be together. I have a very special person to introduce to you. Our speaker this morning is someone who is joining, today is her first day joining the All Souls team. She is with us for at least a year, and she's with us only part-time as a minister on our team, and you'll understand why she's only part-time when I read you her highly reduced biography here. So since 2012, Dr. Nicole Kirk has been an associate professor and the chair of Unitarian Universalist History and History of American Religion at Meadville Lombard Theological School. It's a Unitarian Universalist theological school in Chicago. She earned her PhD from Princeton Theological Seminary. Before pursuing her doctoral studies, Dr. Kirk earned a Master's of Divinity from Vanderbilt Divinity School and a Doctorate of Ministry at Princeton. And in 1998, she became the minister of East Shore Unitarian Universalist Church in Kirtland, Ohio. She served as that congregation's senior minister for 8 years. Nicole, as I know her, I've known her for 25 years, has served on several boards, most recently the American Academy of Religions Board of Trustees. Her courses at the seminary in Chicago include Unitarian Universalist History, I love this one, Call of the Wild, Nature and American Religion, and the History of Global Christianity and more. Dr. Kirk's first book was Wanamaker's Temple, The Business of Religion in an Iconic Department Store, published by New York University Press. Dr. Kirk has published a chapter on Black humanism for the Anthony Pinn's volume Humanism and the Challenge of Difference. Dr. Kirk is working on a book now examining the circus and American religion. I'm looking forward to that, especially. Sometimes it feels like a circus around here. You could study. I hope we're included in your book. Born and raised, get this, born and raised right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Yes. Nicole's one of ours. She's one of our own. Nicole came to All Souls as a child for about 10 years. Her family attended here. She got to hear the great and legendary Dr. Wolf in the pulpit many times, and also be as part of our Sunday school as a child. She did some, also her family attended Hope Unitarian Church here in Tulsa as well for a period of time. She is truly somebody who knows Unitarian Universalism and Tulsa and Oklahoma very, very well. We're so pleased that she'll be with us this year. Her husband, Frederick, is originally from Paris, France. So if you speak French, you'll get a chance to speak with him. They moved here in 2021 as part of Tulsa Remote, when both the seminary began to offer remote classes and Tulsa began to attract people back to live here. So she lives just down the street from us. And her son, her adult son, is named Kirk, and he is a software specialist in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Please give a warm All Souls welcome to Dr. Nicole Kirk. So thank you for being here. This is The Point, our Humanist Hour. Every Sunday we welcome folks wherever you are on your journey of belief or questioning, skepticism, or finding your way. This is a place where everybody's welcome and where we look forward to being together as one community of seekers, skeptics, and all together. And I'd invite you to join me in saying the words of the All Souls Covenant, which is printed here in your program, and it begins with the word love. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Welcome to All Souls, where we love beyond belief. And our chalice lighter this morning is Bill Kello, who's been a member here for many, many years. Judge Kello, some of us know him as Judge Kello, served as a judge in our community and a great citizen of Tulsa and leader here at All Souls. He served on our board of trustees in the past. He's currently one of the leaders of our Welcoming Souls group that welcomes people. So he may have greeted you at the door to the sanctuary over the years, but Bill is lighting our chalice this morning, and Bill, we thank you for doing so.
Thank you. Thank you. On this Sunday before Labor Day, we light this flame to honor all work. The work we do for pay and the work we do for love. The work we do to help others stay alive and thrive. The work we do to ensure people are paid fairly, work reasonable hours, and have quality lives. The work we do caring for the young, the old, and the infirm. The work we do to mentor, to educate, to advocate, and to enrich all lives. We light this chalice to honor all the work we do to make this a brighter world. Thank you.
Our story this morning is from the people of the Arikari Plains. It's called Sharing the Corn, the story of Does Nothing. There was a time when the people of the plains did not have corn. No cornflakes, no cornbread, no corn chips, no corn relish, no creamed corn, no corn potato chowder, no corn on the cob, not even any popcorn. And because there was no corn, the people of the land relied on their hunters to bring buffalo to feed the people. Now, in this time before corn, there was a child named Does Nothing. Now, Does Nothing had two older brothers, Running Wind and Eagle Sight. They were excellent hunters and provided well for their family. But Does Nothing had never been lucky at finding or hunting buffalo. And the people of his village considered him useless. So that is why he was called Does Nothing. Every day he went out to look for buffalo, even though he was pretty sure he wouldn't find any. And one day, Does Nothing crested a high hill and looked down into the valley, and there, standing on the flat between two rivers, stood a bull buffalo facing in the direction of the north. And Does Nothing knew that there was no way he could get close enough to that buffalo to shoot it with an arrow. The buffalo would see him coming, so he watched, hoping the buffalo would move close enough to the trees where he could creep up on it. But the buffalo did not move. And when dark came, Does Nothing could do nothing but go back home. Does Nothing was fascinated by the behavior. So he came back the next day, and when he looked down from that same hill, he saw that same buffalo standing in the same place, only this time it was facing east. And all day the young hunter waited for the buffalo to move. How could an animal stand for so long without moving to eat or drink or lying down to rest? Once again, though, it remained in that same spot until the sun set, and Does Nothing could see it no longer. Does Nothing came back the next day, and the buffalo was still there, only now it was facing south. And just as before, it stood all day without moving. It stood so still that Does Nothing felt certain it would not move even if he came down from his hilltop toward it. Yet something inside him told him to watch and wait. On the fourth day, when Does Nothing returned to his hilltop, he saw that the buffalo now faced west. Surely some great mysterious power was at work, and when Does Nothing returned home that night, he was so excited he could not sleep. Tomorrow, he said to himself, I will go down, and I will see why that buffalo has stood so long without moving. And before the sun had risen, Does Nothing left the lodge and went to the hilltop. The light of the new day spread over the beautiful land, but the buffalo bull was gone. Does Nothing ran down the hill and crossed the river, and the soft, moist earth of the flat plain was covered with a circle of tracks. And there in the center was the place the great buffalo had stood. Only one single deep hoof print was there, in the middle of a mound of earth. And from the center of that hoof print grew a strange plant. Does Nothing looked closely at that plant. It was straight and green with wide, straight leaves. He'd never seen anything like it before. He hurried back to the village to tell the chiefs and the elders what he had found. The chiefs and the elders returned with him to that place, and they saw the many buffalo tracks and the strange plant growing from the mound of earth. Surely, said the wisest of the elders, this is a gift from Wakanda, the great mystery. And just as the elder said that, the plant began to grow, and a single flower grew on top of it. And then the new growth began to appear on the side of the plant. And at the top of that new growth, there were pale yellow strands like hair. And slowly, the growth on the side of the plant changed color, turning from green to light brown. Does Nothing stepped forward and gently placed his hand on the sides of the plant and then brought his hands down to the earth. Wakanda, he said, I thank you for this blessing. Then he picked the fruit and stripped back the husk. Within the husk was a stalk covered with many red grains. And he plucked a few free and he tasted them. Everyone watched and waited. Then Does Nothing smiled. These are sweet to the taste as milk, he said. Truly, this is a gift. It is new food for the people. Now other fruits had appeared on the plant, and as they ripened, the people picked them. Some of those ears of corn had red kernels, and some were white, while some others were yellow or blue. These must be the seeds, the elders said. We must not eat them all, but save some to plant in the spring. And when the next spring came, they returned to that place between the rivers, and there they made mounds of earth like the ones which the first mother cornstalk had grown. In each mound they planted 4 kernels of corn, one of each color for each of the 4 directions. That field of corn did not grow as quickly as the first cornstalk had grown, but it grew tall throughout the summer. Ears formed on the tall cornstalks, and when those ears turned brown in late summer, the people made their first harvest. And as they gathered that harvest, they spoke words of thanks to Wakanda. They thanked the mother corn herself. They thanked the bull buffalo who brought the corn. And there was more than enough corn to feed all the people throughout the winter. Does Nothing saw all of this. My people, Does Nothing said, we must share this gift with the other peoples of the plain. Everyone agreed. An invitation was sent out to all of the peoples around them. All were invited to come and share in the harvest. And 6 other nations came. They all ate together, and when they left, each of those nations took kernels of corn with them so that they could grow fields of their own. That is how the boy who had done nothing but watch and pay attention and notice did something great. That is how Mother Corn came to the plains and was shared by all the people. I invite our children and youth to come to Sunday school, where we will talk about all of the things we are called to do in our lives.
trying to imagine a world without corn. No corn chips and cornbread, and it sounds like quite a stark world. I love the stories that Shannon Boston shares with us. She's our executive director of religious exploration. She's been in this community for over 25 years. Well, been in this community her whole life, but on staff over 25 years. And she gives us stories that help us to think about our lives in different ways. And she does that before the children leave, and then they talk about the stories and do projects around the stories in the Sunday school. And I would just want to invite you, if you're a parent or a grandparent of one of our young people, that you, on the way home from All Souls or throughout the week, look for ways to reinforce the messages in the story, to talk. Sometimes we don't know what to talk about with our kids because they're playing with Pokemon and we're doing something else, and we don't have a common language. But here we're being provided some common stories and images and values that we can easily talk to our young people about and say, hey, what did you think of that story, or what stuck out for you? So I want to encourage you to do that today, but also throughout the year as a way of connecting more. Also, I just want to lift up all those who do work in our community. This being Labor Day weekend, I think during the pandemic, many of us realized how important those folks who do the work of this world, sometimes at great risk to themselves, in order to make things happen. So we honor all those in our community that support labor and that do the good work of our world. I have a few transitions before I'm going to invite us all to do nothing for just a moment together. Dorothy Shakota lost her cousin, Carolyn Mansker Blackwell, this week on Wednesday, so we're thinking about Dorothy and her family. Dion Lambert and her mother, Marion Odom, they lost Dion's brother-in-law, Richard Garrett, this week, so please give your love and open your hearts to them. Also, Hunter Jameson, who is our front desk person here at All Souls. She lost her father just a year ago today, so if you see her, she's not working today, but when you see her, give her some love. And I know there's care team cards in Emerson Hall where you can sign for these folks and others who are in just, going through something, and it means a lot to people. I get letters all the time. People say, I got a card signed by members of All Souls. It meant so much to me. So thank you for doing that. Let us take a moment in silence just to, like the story said, his name was Do Nothing, but in that doing nothing, he was actually doing a lot. And let's take a moment of silence together just to listen to our own heartbeats, our own lives speaking to us, this moment, the very breath of life, remembering that we all began as stars, and we're all made up of the particles of stars as we float through this universe together for this short, brief time where we have the breath of life within us, alive and conscious. Let us take a moment of silence to listen to what life is calling us to do.
All souls. It is great to be with you, and I'm so excited for this coming year. Thanks for your warm welcome. And I had a question, actually, I hadn't asked. If I move around here, will the camera be able to follow me? Yes, especially now that you told them. Yeah, okay. So he said, especially because I told them. It's just, I look forward to getting to know you over this coming year and maybe even longer. This is an exciting time. Next week I won't be with you. I'll be in Chicago starting the fall semester at Meadville Lombard. I am a part-time minister here, but then you'll be seeing me on a regular basis after that. So 5 years ago on a hot summer day, I found myself in Japan in the Mie Prefecture, halfway up a mountain. It's about 2 hours or so from Tokyo on the bullet train. And I'm on this mountain, and I have a bamboo broom in my hand, and I'm sweeping a gravel path. Sweeping in the morning, the debris from the trees overnight, and the leaves. And this is one of the morning rituals I am taking part in because I was staying at the Tsubaki Grand Shrine. It's a long time partner to many international groups that Unitarian Universalists are a part of. And I was there during a three-week stay. And I'm sweeping, and I'm wearing the white robes of a novice Shinto priest. And as I'm sweeping up the leaves, I'm watching the people who are going up for their morning rituals, and I'm noticing the other priests who are around me. The chief priest is next to me, the other head priests are there, and the other novice priest. We're all sweeping. This is a daily ritual, as long as it's not raining, at the Shinto shrine. And it's one of the practices of the Shinto Tsubaki Grand Shrine and shrines across Japan. Now, our morning sweeping ritual was a daunting task because the Tsubaki Shrine doesn't sit in an open field where the forest is on the edge. It sits in the middle of a forest, towering all around us. The trees are lining the paths, but they're also in the middle of the path. So you're sweeping up leaves that are all around you, and every morning there's a lot of leaves, even in the summer. And as you're sweeping, leaves are falling, as they do in the summer. Have you noticed that? Leaves still fall in the summer, even here in Tulsa. They float down, and when you're trying to sweep them up, it can be, okay, there's another one. We would do this sweeping ritual for quite a while until the beating of the tiger drum to call us to the morning worship. Now, for the Shinto, sweeping the paths with the bamboo broom is not just sweeping. Sweeping is an important ritual, as I said, to the shrine. The clearing away of the leaves from the sacred paths is an act of purification for the shrine grounds, and a reminder to each of us that we are all a part of nature. Human beings are intimately connected to nature and the many expressions of the divine for the Shinto. Now, the Shinto priests teach us that we are all born shining and gleaming and pure. And we might imagine, as Marlon said this morning, that we are all a part of the stars, shining and bright and gleaming, born that way. But then, over time, our lives gather debris, like the gravel path sitting in a forest with leaves slowly falling. Those bits of debris gather on our shining, gleaming ways, the actions of others. We experience our own actions, diminish our shining, negative places and spaces, what we might call oppressive structures and systems that obscure our harmonious connection with the natural world, with one another, and with ourselves. To return to this harmonious state, the Shinto teach we need renewal. We need a way to come back into harmony with nature and our own brightness. And it was an appealing idea to me It was something I yearned for, coming back into harmony with myself and life. And perhaps it's one of the reasons I embarked on this trip to Japan. We had a student who was set to go and had to cancel last minute. I said those fateful words, I always wanted to go, and that set the ball rolling. But I must have really wanted to go because I'm also allergic to shellfish. And it's such a part of Japanese culture, it made parts of the trip very, very challenging. And yet I went, and I survived, and I went, and had this remarkable experience. And a big part of it was, of all the things, the sweeping. After the morning ritual, I said we would go and have a ritual service of purification. We would chant a Japanese prayer. When I went to the shrine, I imagined this is what I would do on a daily basis, that I would study Shintoism, that I would do Japanese calligraphy, and that I would take in the natural beauty of this shrine that had worshipers there for over 2,000 years. So a very sacred place in Japan. It was in a time, though, that I found one of the most important parts of my experience was the sweeping. You see, for 2 decades had gone by, and since I had said yes to going into the ministry, since I was 25 years old, I have been a minister, a Unitarian Universalist minister. I've had other periods of vocational discernment, like when I left my beloved congregation after 8 years to go get a PhD. And it was time I felt that I needed to enter into serious discernment again about my vocation. Even if I would continue on the path that I was on, and I did, I needed renewal of my life in other ways. I was hungry for something more. What is your vocation? You online, you sitting here in this sunny space in Tulsa on this afternoon, what is your vocation? Are you in a place where you're wondering what you should do with your life next week, next month, and the next few years? Now, the Latin word for vocation, the Latin root, I should say, for the word vocation is voice. And so it's listening for the calling of a voice. So sometimes you hear about people talking about vocation as a call to do something. For some people, they believe the calling comes from an external source like the goddess, God, or some kind of divine entity. Others interpret vocation as a goal to work towards, often associated with the helping professions as ministers and doctors, lawyers, therapists, and nonprofit workers, and other occupations. Another school of thought thinks about vocation as a set of noble ideals and values that you work towards. You often would have maybe a great leader in their social justice movement as your goal to become like that person. And that would be very much kind of the American mindset. I have a goal. These are the things I need to do to get to that goal. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to train myself to be like this person. And yet another perspective on vocation is an inclination towards an occupation, yes, but also art or service. That you find that you have particular skills with painting, illustrating, drawing, sculpture, arranging flowers is an artistic expression, photography, weaving. In other words, your vocation may also not necessarily be the job that you have to support your life and your family. A vocation can be fulfilled through work that you do on the side or that you do as a hobby. It could be a part of your social justice work. Your activism is the thing that is your vocation, but it may not be a part of your everyday job. Parker Palmer, the Quaker teacher, activist, and writer, wrestles with these questions in vocation in many of the books he's written over the years. And it's Palmer's definition of vocation that I use as a professor at Meadville Lombard, where I'm training the next generation of ministers. It's a definition that I've come back to throughout my own life, and I think about it a lot as I came here today as your new program minister, part-time, here at All Souls. Parker Palmer invites us to think about vocation not as a goal, not as a particular kind of profession. He wants us to seek and listen for our own vacation or vocation inside of us. To listen not for a call outside from a mentor or a friend or someone we see on TV, but instead it is listening to your life. Listening to your life for who you are and what you are meant to do. And when I say listening, there are many ways to open yourselves to the sensory moment, to reach in and to reflect on what is deep inside of your heart. Palmer, talking to one of the members of the Quaker congregation he was a part of, received advice from her on this topic. She said, before you tell your life what you intend to do with it, listen for what it intends to do with you. Again, you can say listen or study or spend time with or reflect. Before you tell your life what truths and values you have decided to live up to, let your life tell you what truths you embody, what values you represent. Now, for those of us who have marginalized identities, the listening process is extremely challenging. In a world where it's sometimes difficult to reconcile what we know about ourselves inside of us and what the world tells and says about us through word and action, and they don't measure up. That makes the vocational work extremely difficult, having to sort through, and sometimes people talking about as they do that vocational work from marginalized identities that they feel divided. And so how to bring yourself into a united whole. And for all of us, reflecting deeply on our lives can be frightening. It's leaning over the edges of our lives and looking at the sharp places, the places of discomfort that we may have avoided for a long time. It's the places where we've had an inclination that you have a desire to explore a new way, a new artistic expression, but you're too afraid to start. You're afraid to fail. There's so many ways that we stop ourselves in this vocational work. And so it may sound simple advice to take the ancient Socrates statement of know thyself, but then to actually do the work is a whole nother matter. Parker Palmer says that most of us struggle with vocational discernment. We are told not to get our information about ourselves from ourselves, but from others. Parker has observed over the years that in leading lots of retreats a lot of times on vocation and teaching, from time to time, participants would show him their notes. They would come up and say, hey, I want to share with you some of the notes I took and how I was moved by this retreat. And he's discovered, with very few exceptions over the years, the notes people take are what the retreat leader says, and maybe what another wise person in the room says, but never what the person who has the notes. They don't take notes on what they say. They don't write down their own reflections about how they were engaging in the moment. We find guidance everywhere except from within. This is one of the reasons I encourage people in my classes to journal or embrace Julia Cameron's morning pages from her classic book, The Artist's Way. Regular journaling, however you do it, can be a powerful feedback loop. And you don't have to write it all down. That's hard for some of us. It could be dictating it. It could be drawing it. But some kind of reflective practice that gives you an opportunity to see what is dwelling in your heart. It's always a surprise about the morning pages. First thing in the morning, you wake up and you write whatever comes to your mind for 3 pages. And sometimes, a lot of times, I've been surprised. That's what was on my mind this morning. That's what I've been carrying around this week. That's what I'm thinking about. That's what I'm excited about. That's what I'm worried about. Now, my stay at the Tsubaki Grand Shrine and the rituals of the Shinto reminded me of the necessity to revisit my vocation from time to time. I had made my life very busy right before that trip. And in that time of the morning ritual of sweeping, sort of like when Reverend Marlin asked us to sit still for a while, it's hard to do that in this life. And so sweeping made me slow down, made me come back into my body, grounded me, so to speak. And there, in the far away from the demands of daily life, I began to see that I needed to work on my vocation again, to see where I was at, what was next, what was inspiring me and giving me the most life. But I also had to wait, because vocational reflection is not something that I could do in Japan, away from the daily demands of my life and my family and my friends and my colleagues, my community. Vocational discernment is done in community when it's at its best, so that as you are listening and reflecting and finding ways to dig deeper inside of yourself, you're able to share that with others and to process it and to think with one another. Vocation is not something we do once as well. It is not something we check off the list and we're done. It is a process of recommitment and exploration throughout our lives. So as we move into this new period in the life of this congregation, I hope that you will spend some time digging in with me and thinking about what brings you great joy, what values are at the center of your heart, to really do some of that deeper reflection. And to know that it can be scary, that sometimes you want to back away, and maybe this is why you avoided it, but it can be really, really powerful. And so that maybe you'll keep that in your mind as you leave here today. I'll share a story that Parker Palmer tells about an experience he had at Outward Bound, the outdoors program that he did in his 40s, where he learned that lesson very, very well. He had, since he had heard about the Outward Bound program, he had been very excited about everything the program had to offer except one thing, that apparently in the middle, they make you essentially rappel off the side of a 110-foot cliff. And he wasn't so interested about that, just a rope and a harness, and you're leaning out over the void. There's nothing under you but the ground 11 stories below. And he, as one might be, was a bit intimidated by that situation. In fact, he was terrified. But this is his reflection on that moment and what he learned. So he had looked down and noticed that there was, at the first part, there was like 5 feet down, a drop. And then about 10 feet down, there's another drop. And then you go all the way down to the bottom, to that 11 stories below. And so he set out, he leaned back, the harness is secure, they did the safety checks. He's trying to negotiate that first drop, and his feet goes out from under him and he hits the wall of the cliff. Well, the instructor yells out to him, "I don't think you quite have it yet." Very observant. "You're leaning too close to the rock face. You need to lean out much farther back so your feet can grip the wall." Well, and these are the words of Parker Palmer. He says, "That advice, like so much advice from spiritual traditions, went against every instinct. Surely one should hunt the wall, hug the wall, not lean out over the void." But there he went, and he tried it again, and on the second drop, he tried to lean back better, but not far enough, and he hit the second ledge with a thud, not unlike the first, and his ever-observant instructor said, "You still don't have it. Try again." Well, since his next try would be the last one, he decided that this was not very comforting advice, try again, but he was going to try it and see if he could get it done. And much to his amazement, he started moving down the rock wall. He was keeping his feet parallel, and he was moving and moving down with some confidence until about halfway down, the rock face dipped in, kind of like a hole, and he found himself what he felt like to be trapped. And so what would one do in this situation? Naturally, for many of us, he froze. Didn't move. He didn't know how to get out of this. And the instructor waited and waited for a small eternity, hoping he would thaw out. When she realized that he was showing no signs of life, she yelled up to him again, "Is anything wrong, Parker?" As if she needed to ask. Well, to this day, he says, I do not know what the source of that voice was that came out of my body, but he said, I don't want to talk about it. Hanging there in the air. I don't want to talk about it. How many times we have said that when we are going deep and we get worried? Well, the instructor yelled back up to Palmer, then I think it's time you learn the outward bound motto. Wonderful, he thought. I'm about to die, and she's giving me these mottos. But when she spoke the words, I have never forgotten them to this day, he writes. They were so true, and they empowered me to not only negotiate the rest of the cliff without incident, it has been serving me in my life ever since. And that motto is, if you can't get out of it, get into it. If you can't get out of it, get into it. He says, bone deep, I knew there was no way out of this situation except to go deeper. And with that knowledge, my body began to move. Parker's story shows us quite clearly the challenges of vocational work, because it is going deep, and there'll be surprises, and there'll be places that are unexpected, and we get worried and we'll freeze up. So this year, together, if you can't get out of it, I want all of us together to get into it here at All Souls, to do the work, to go deeper. We only get this one life. Let's do something amazing with it. And if you're already doing amazing work, let's do it even more and share it more widely. If you can't get out of it, let's get in it together, All Souls. Thank you.
Wake now, wake now, wake now, my vision of ministry clear, brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care. Wake now, wake now.
All right, beautiful. Beautiful, and it's beautiful to watch you also signing. Yes, wow. Thank you so much for doing that. So if we can't get out of it, we got to get into it. So I want to give you a couple of ways to get into it with us that are coming up. So I've got a few announcements. In just a moment, we're going to take up an offering. We give away our offering for those who are visiting. We give away our offering every week to causes that we care about. And today, in honor of Dr. Kirk's maiden voyage with us here this year, we are giving our offering today to the John Wolfe Scholarship at Meadville Lombard Theological School. And John Wolfe was the minister of this congregation for over 50 years. He died in 2017. Just a remarkable person. And so in his honor, we started a scholarship there where he went to school. And you can give to support some young person who might be a student of Dr. Kirk's in the years ahead. But before we take up the offering, let me just make a couple quick announcements. If you are here for the very first time and want to learn more about All Souls and how a congregation like this came about, just as you walk out the door here to the left, there's a library, and there's someone who will be there to meet you and greet you and answer your questions. I'll sneak in there and also look forward to greeting you as well. If you're ready to join All Souls and become a part of this community at 12:45, so in about 20 minutes, upstairs in room 206, we're going to be welcoming folks or answering questions. If you're thinking about joining and just want to hear more about it, come on up to 206, and I look forward to talking to you about that and welcoming you. A couple quick things too. The pickleball tournament. If you're a pickleball player, we're having our first pickleball tournament, and that'll be on the 21st of September. You need to sign up and register. We're going to open it up to the general public this week, so today's a great day to make sure you get on the list, and it's going to all the proceeds help All Souls. This year, one of the ways to get into it, to really get into it here, is to join our Conscious Inclusion program, which is, these are small groups that are going to meet throughout the fall and into the winter and spring, looking at things like racial identity and understanding ourselves. It's going to be listening to our own lives, and it'll be a great cross-cultural experience, and I just highly suggest that you do that. I often tell people, like I will be telling people who are joining All Souls today, that when you join a community like ours that's so diverse, then you're starting the next step of your spiritual journey, growing interpersonally, but also an intercultural journey, growing to your understanding of culture and your own culture and yourself. So this Conscious Inclusion starts September 4th, Wednesday night. This Wednesday night will be a in-person and Zoom chance to connect, and then it will start, the whole program will start the following week. So I encourage everybody to be a part of it. And Reverend Randy Lewis asked me to really also especially encourage those who consider themselves a person of color in our community to consider being a part of this. It means a great deal to us to have a great mix of folks involved in this Conscious Inclusion program. If you have children and youth, our children and youth choirs are doing vocal placements. Our children and youth choirs sing to us throughout the year, and they are amazing, and it's a great learning program for them, both musically and also interpersonally, so I encourage you. There's new dates for vocal placement. It takes 10 or 15 minutes. It's not an audition. It's just a chance to place the young people in the right choir, and those are September 3rd through 5th this coming week. And finally, our next Sunday is our homecoming Sunday, when we're going to have a picnic on the lawn, and we're going to have games and a bounce house and face painting, and they're going to be twisting up balloon animals and all kinds of stuff for the children. So it's going to be a lot of fun next Sunday. Come on out, bring your friends, plan to stick around a little bit, and let's enjoy some games together and getting to know one another as we launch a new calendar year, so to speak, with All Souls. Welcome. Let us now receive our offering for Meadville Lombard. thank you. So I just want to say, Nicole, it's great having you with us for this year, and just what a great start, and just excited. She's our program minister is the title, and she will do all aspects of ministry that all of us do, but in her part-time role, she'll kind of focus a little bit more heavily on helping us improve and strengthen and broaden our education programs and programming for the children and all ages throughout the lifespan. So we're just so glad to welcome you. Would you say some closing words to send us off into this wonderful week?
Absolutely. And so may the truth that sets us free, the hope that never dies, the love which casts out fear, lead us forward together until the day spring breaks and love and justice show us the way. Go in peace on this day. Thank you.